Carter was jolted awake by the insistent ringing of her phone. She squinted at the clock on her bedside table. Just after midnight. "Groggy but alert," she answered. The voice on the other end was frantic. "Dr. Carter, this is Mayor Sullivan of New York City. Government buildings are under attack. People are disappearing. We need your team immediately." Emily's heart raced. She was the head of the Secret Service paranormal investigation team, a job that had seen her face countless supernatural threats. But the urgency in the mayor's voice told her this was something different. She quickly assembled her team. Alex Monroe, the tech genius with an impressive arsenal of ghost hunting gear. Lisa Chen, the psychic medium who could sense and communicate with spirits. And Jack Collins, the former Navy SEAL turned paranormal investigator. By the time they arrived in New York, dawn was breaking over the city, casting an eerie light on the otherwise bustling metropolis. Mayor Sullivan greeted them with a haggard expression. Shadows, whispers, people vanishing without a trace. It's like something out of a nightmare. Alex, ever the joker, smirked. Just another day at the office. The team made their way to City Hall, the epicenter of the disturbances. Shadows seemed to slither along the walls, and the air was thick with a sense of foreboding. Lisa's eyes widened as they entered the building. There are multiple entities here, and they're not happy. Emily nodded, her mind already working on a plan. "Let's set up the equipment and see what we're dealing with." Alex set up his array of ghost hunting gear, EMF detectors, infrared cameras, and motion sensors. Almost immediately, the EMF detector spiked. "We've got activity," he said, his voice tinged with both excitement and a hint of fear. Lisa closed her eyes, reaching out with her psychic senses. "I can feel them. Crawlers. They're moving through the walls." Jack gripped his weapon tighter. "Let's hope these things can be taken down with more than just holy water." As they moved cautiously through the building, the shadows twisted and writhed in the dim light, the temperature dropping sharply. They reached the mayor's office, where the disturbances were strongest. Emily turned on the spirit box, a device used to communicate with ghosts. The static crackled, and a deep, guttural voice emerged. "Leave now." Lisa shivered. This isn't just a haunting, it's an invasion. Suddenly, the room plunged into darkness. Flashlights flickered, revealing ghostly figures emerging from the walls. Jack fired a shot, and the shadows recoiled with an unearthly screech. "We need to regroup," Emily ordered. "These entities are organized." Back in a secured room, the team reviewed their findings. Alex pointed to a recurring figure in the footage. "This shadowman seems to be leading the attacks. We need to find out who or what he is." Their research led them to an old government experiment involving supernatural entities. Project Phantom, an attempt to harness these entities for military purposes, had gone horribly wrong. Emily frowned. "Looks like someone didn't learn from history. These entities want revenge." Lisa's eyes widened as she had a vision. "They're planning something big. We need to warn the authorities." Mayor Sullivan was skeptical but desperate. "You want me to tell the public we're being attacked by ghosts?" "Just say it's a security threat," Emily suggested. "We need more manpower." As the night wore on, the team knew they were facing a threat unlike any they had encountered before. The battle against the supernatural was just beginning, and the fate of New York hung in the balance. The gravity of the situation began to sink in as Emily and her team gathered in the mayor's war room. A state of emergency had been declared, and the city was on high alert. Reports were flooding in from across New York. Spectral apparitions, unexplained disappearances, and strange creatures prowling the night. It was clear that the paranormal invasion was spreading rapidly. Mayor Sullivan paced the room, his face lined with worry. "We've evacuated most of the government buildings, but people are scared. We need answers, and we need them fast." Emily nodded. "We have to figure out who this shadowman is and how to stop him." "Lisa, any more insights from your visions?" Lisa closed her eyes, her brow furrowing as she concentrated. "He's tied to Project Phantom. The experiments took place in multiple locations. We need to visit these sites to find clues. Alex pulled up a map on his tablet, marking the locations associated with Project Phantom. There's an abandoned lab in Brooklyn, an old psychiatric hospital in Queens, and a decommissioned military base upstate. Jack, ever the pragmatist, checked his gear. We should start with the lab. It's the closest. The team set off, the streets eerily quiet under the looming threat. The lab was a crumbling relic, overgrown with weeds and covered in graffiti. They forced open the rusted doors and stepped into the darkness. Alex set up his equipment while Jack and Emily secured the area. Lisa stood still, her senses reaching out. There's a lot of residual energy here. Whatever happened, it left a mark. As they explored the lab, they discovered old files and photographs documenting the Project Phantom experiments. The images were disturbing. Ghostly figures in containment units, scientists conducting gruesome tests. Emily scanned the documents. They were trying to weaponize these entities, but it looks like they lost control. The Shadowman must be one of their creations. A sudden noise echoed through the lab, and Alex's EMF detector went haywire. "We're not alone," he warned, his voice tense. Dark shapes began to coalesce around them. The temperature plummeted, and the air grew thick with malice. Jack aimed his flashlight at the shadows, revealing distorted faces and clawed hands reaching out. "Stay close," Emily ordered, pulling out a vial of holy water. She threw it at the nearest shadow, which shrieked and dissipated. Lisa focused, trying to communicate with the entities. They're angry, but they're also afraid. The Shadowman controls them. They want to be free. Alex activated a modified ghost trap, and with a blinding flash, several of the entities were sucked inside. But the Shadowman was nowhere to be seen. "We need to get to the hospital," Emily said. "There's more to this story." They hurried back to their van, the spectral threat still lingering. As they drove towards Queens, Emily briefed the mayor over the phone. "We've found some information, but we need more time. The Shadowman is using the city's fear to grow stronger." Mayor Sullivan's voice was grim. "Do whatever you need to do. Just stop this madness." The psychiatric hospital loomed ahead, another decaying structure with dark secrets. The team knew they were venturing deeper into the unknown, but they had no choice. The Shadowman's grip on the city was tightening, and time was running out. The psychiatric hospital was a hulking behemoth of despair, its windows shattered and ivy crawling up its stone walls. As the team approached, the air seemed to thrum with a malevolent energy, and Lisa shivered despite the summer heat. Jack glanced around, his hand on his holstered gun. "I hate these places. Too many bad vibes." "Keep it together," Emily said, trying to steady her own nerves. "We need to find out what happened here and how it connects to the Shadowman." Alex set up his equipment outside, monitoring for any unusual activity, while the rest of the team ventured inside. The interior was a labyrinth of decaying rooms and peeling paint. The walls seemed to whisper secrets of the tormented souls who had once been confined here. As they moved deeper into the building, Lisa suddenly stopped, her eyes widening. "I can feel them. The spirits here. They're in pain." Emily nodded, gripping her flashlight tighter. "Let's split up and cover more ground. Jack, you come with me. Lisa, stay with Alex and see if you can make contact with any spirits. We need to understand what we're dealing with." The corridors were long and winding, each corner revealing more signs of abandonment and suffering. Emily and Jack entered what appeared to be an old therapy room. Dust-covered journals and medical records were scattered on the floor. Jack picked up a journal, flipping through its yellowed pages. These patients were part of the experiments. The doctors were trying to use their mental instability to connect with the spirit world. Emily's flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. It makes sense. They believed that the patients' minds were more susceptible to the supernatural. But it looks like it backfired. Meanwhile, Lisa and Alex set up a spirit box in the main hall. The device crackled to life, static giving way to faint whispers. Lisa closed her eyes, focusing on the voices. "We're here to help you. Please tell us what happened. A chilling voice emerged from the static, clear, and desperate. Trapped shadowman must escape. Alex's eyes widened. Did you hear that? They're confirming the shadowman's presence. Lisa nodded, her face pale. We need to find his anchor. There must be something binding him to this place. Back in the therapy room, Emily and Jack discovered a hidden compartment behind a bookshelf. Inside was a dusty old box filled with ritualistic items, candles, symbols, and a small, worn journal. Emily opened the journal, reading aloud. The shadow man created through dark rituals, using the fear and pain of the patients. He grows stronger with each soul he takes. Jack frowned. So, he's been feeding off the energy of this place for years. But why now? Why attack the government buildings? Emily closed the journal, her mind racing. Something must have triggered him. Maybe the increase in urban development disturbed his resting place. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed through the building, followed by Alex's panicked voice over the radio. Emily, get back here. We've got company. Emily and Jack sprinted back to the main hall, where Alex and Lisa were surrounded by shadowy figures. The air was thick with tension as the entities closed in. We need to get out of here, Alex yelled, his eyes wide with fear. Emily threw a protective circle around them, using salt from her kit, the shadowy figures recoiling from the barrier. Everyone stay close. We're getting out now. As they retreated from the hospital, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that they were only scratching the surface of the mystery. The shadow man was growing bolder, and their time was running out. They needed to find a way to stop him before more lives were lost. The team gathered in their makeshift headquarters, a small, dimly lit room in a nondescript building near the heart of New York City. Emily spread out the contents of the journal they had found at the psychiatric hospital on the table, her mind racing with the implications of their discovery. Jack paced back and forth, his frustration palpable. So we know the Shadow Man is tied to the hospital and feeds on fear, but why target the government buildings now? Alex, hunched over his laptop, looked up. I've been digging into recent construction permits and urban development plans. There's been a lot of excavation around old sites in the city, including near the hospital. It's possible they disturbed something. Lisa, her eyes closed as she tried to reach out to the spirits for guidance, suddenly spoke up. The Shadow Man was dormant until they started digging. They unearthed something that woke him up. Emily nodded, considering the possibilities. We need to figure out what exactly they found. It might be the key to stopping him. Just then, their door burst open, and a man in a black suit and sunglasses stepped in. He held up a badge. Agent Richard Harris, Secret Service. We've been monitoring your activities. The government needs your help. The team exchanged wary glances. Emily stood up. What does the Secret Service have to do with this? Agent Harris closed the door behind him. We've been aware of paranormal activities tied to certain locations in the city for years. The recent disturbances have escalated to a point where we can no longer handle them internally. We need your expertise. Jack crossed his arms. And what's in it for us? Harris smirked. Aside from the chance to save countless lives, full access to classified information and resources, you'll have everything you need to stop this entity. Emily agreed, knowing they had little choice. All right, we're in. What do you know about the recent excavations? Harris pulled out a file and laid it on the table. Several sites were being prepped for new government buildings. During the digging, workers reported strange occurrences: disembodied voices, cold spots, and shadowy figures. The activity centered around artifacts from the early 1800s, likely related to dark rituals performed by a secret society. Lisa's eyes widened. The same society that created the Shadow Man. Emily scanned the file, her mind piecing together the puzzle. We need to visit these sites. If the Shadow Man is using them as focal points, we might find a way to weaken him. With the Secret Service's resources at their disposal, the team set out to investigate the excavation sites. The first location was a construction zone downtown, surrounded by high fences and heavy machinery. As they approached, Emily felt a familiar chill in the air. Jack and Alex set up their equipment, while Lisa attempted to make contact with any lingering spirits. Emily and Harris examined the artifacts unearthed during the dig, a collection of old bones, worn talismans, and strange symbols carved into stones. Lisa gasped, her eyes wide with terror. "He's here. The Shadow Man is watching us." Before they could react, the shadowy figure materialized in front of them, its presence overwhelming. The temperature dropped, and the team felt an oppressive weight bearing down on them. "Stay together," Emily shouted, throwing a protective circle around the group. The Shadow Man lunged, its form twisting and contorting. Jack fired his weapon, the bullets passing harmlessly through the entity. "Damn it, we need something stronger." Harris pulled out a small, silver device and activated it. A bright light erupted, forcing the Shadow Man to retreat with an unearthly shriek. Emily stared at the device in shock. "What is that?" Harris smirked. "One of our toys. It disrupts their energy, but it won't hold him off for long. We need to find the source of his power and destroy it." As the Shadow Man faded into the darkness, Emily knew they were running out of time. The entity was growing stronger, and their only hope was to uncover the secrets buried in the city's past before it was too late. The chamber shook, and the Shadow Man dissolved into nothingness. The oppressive feeling lifted, and the team let out a collective sigh of relief. "We did it," Emily said, her voice shaky. "But this isn't over. We need to ensure something like this never happens again." As they emerged from the catacombs, the first rays of dawn breaking through the church's stained glass windows, Emily knew they had won this battle. But the war against the darkness was far from over. The victory over the Shadow Man gave the team a brief respite, but Emily's mind was already racing with what they had uncovered. The journal's mention of a secret society and the artifact's power hinted at a larger, more sinister conspiracy. As the team regrouped at their headquarters, the atmosphere was a mix of relief and apprehension. Agent Harris cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "I've contacted my superiors. They're sending reinforcements, but they want us to continue investigating the society. They believe there's more to this than just the Shadow Man." Emily nodded, still clutching Nathaniel Hawthorne's journal. "This society has deep roots. We need to find out how far their influence extends and what their ultimate goal is. We can't let them unleash another terror like the Shadow Man." Lisa, still pale from the earlier encounter, looked up. "I keep sensing something, an urgency. The spirits are trying to warn us. They mentioned a council. Harris's eyes widened. "The Council of Shadows. It's mentioned in some of the more obscure intelligence files. They're a group of powerful individuals, supposedly controlling supernatural entities for their gain." Jack leaned back, rubbing his temples. "Great. So now we're up against a shadowy cabal with God knows what kind of resources. This just keeps getting better." Emily managed a wry smile. "At least we're keeping things interesting. But seriously, we need to track down the members of this council. If we can disrupt their operations, we might be able to prevent another disaster." Alex, who had been quietly working on his laptop, looked up. "I think I've got something. There's a mansion on the outskirts of the city that's been linked to several of the society's activities. It's owned by a man named Victor Hargrove, a known associate of Nathaniel Hawthorne." Harris nodded. "Hargrove is a key figure. If we can get to him, we might be able to uncover the council's plans." The team geared up and headed to the mansion. As they approached the imposing structure, Emily couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The mansion loomed like a dark sentinel, its windows like eyes peering into their souls. They entered cautiously, their flashlights cutting through the dimness. The interior was lavish yet cold, every corner shrouded in shadows. As they moved through the halls, they found a study filled with ancient books and strange artifacts. "This must be Hargrove's sanctum," Emily said, examining a bookcase filled with esoteric tomes. "Look for anything that might give us a clue about the council's next move." Jack found a hidden compartment behind a portrait. Inside was a cache of documents and a map. "Bingo! This looks like a list of council members and their meeting places. Suddenly, the air grew cold, and a deep voice echoed through the room. You should not have come here. The team spun around to see a figure materializing, tall, dark, and menacing. It was Hargrove, his eyes glowing with an unnatural light. You think you can stop the council? Hargrove sneered. You have no idea what you're up against. Harris stepped forward, his weapon drawn. We're not afraid of you or your council. We've already taken down the shadowman. Hargrove laughed, a chilling sound. The shadowman was just the beginning. You have no idea what's coming. Emily, clutching the glowing stone from the artifact, stepped forward. Maybe not, but we're going to stop you. Whatever it takes. As Hargrove raised his hand, dark energy crackling around him, Emily directed the stone's power towards him. The energy collided, and the room was filled with blinding light. When it faded, Hargrove was gone, leaving behind only a faint echo of his laughter. The team stood in stunned silence, the documents and maps still clutched in Jack's hands. Emily took a deep breath. We've got what we came for. Let's get out of here and plan our next move. The council may be powerful, but they're not invincible. We'll find a way to stop them. As they left the mansion, the weight of their mission settled on their shoulders. The council was a formidable enemy, but they had the information they needed to fight back. The team returned to their headquarters, the atmosphere thick with urgency. They laid out the documents and map they had retrieved from Hargrove's mansion. The names and locations detailed a web of influence stretching across the city and beyond. We need to act fast, Emily said, her voice steady. The Council of Shadows won't just sit back now that we've disrupted their plans. They'll strike back, and we need to be ready. Agent Harris tapped a name on the list. Victor Hargrove was just one piece. We have at least 7 other council members to track down. Some of them are in key positions: politics, business, law enforcement. Lisa, still shaken from their encounter, spoke up. I've been sensing something since we left the mansion. The spirits are restless. They know we're close and they're scared. We need to be careful. Jack looked at the map, tracing routes between locations. We can't hit them all at once. We need a strategy. If we can take out their key operatives, the rest might crumble. Emily nodded. Agreed. Let's start with the ones closest to us. We'll split into teams. Jack and I will take the council member in the financial district. Harris, you and Lisa take the one at the precinct. Alex, you stay here and monitor communications. As they geared up, the gravity of their mission weighed on them. The Council of Shadows was more than a group of powerful individuals. It was an ancient network, woven into the very fabric of the city. Jack and Emily drove through the bustling streets of the financial district. The target, Maxwell Donovan, was a high-ranking executive with ties to various political figures. They entered his office building, blending in with the flow of business suits and hurried footsteps. Remember, Donovan is dangerous, Emily reminded Jack as they rode the elevator. We need to catch him off guard. The elevator doors opened to a sleek, modern office space. They approached Donovan's office, and Emily knocked on the door. A voice called them in. Maxwell Donovan was a tall man with sharp features and cold eyes. He looked up from his desk, his expression turning to one of suspicion. Can I help you? Emily flashed a badge, masking their true intentions. We're here on official business. There's been a security breach, and we need to ask you some questions. Donovan's eyes narrowed, but he nodded. Very well. Make it quick. As Emily engaged Donovan in conversation, Jack quietly moved to the side, positioning himself by the window. Suddenly, Donovan's demeanor shifted. He lunged at Emily, his eyes glowing with a malevolent light. Jack reacted swiftly, tackling Donovan to the ground. Emily pulled out the glowing stone, channeling its energy towards Donovan. He writhed and screamed, the dark power dissipating from his body. We need to get out of here, Emily said, helping Jack to his feet. The others will have heard that. They fled the office, Donovan's unconscious form left behind. Outside, they regrouped with Harris and Lisa, who had successfully apprehended their target at the precinct. "We're making progress," Harris said, his face grim. "But the council will retaliate." Lisa nodded, her eyes haunted. "The spirits are growing more agitated. We're running out of time." Emily looked at her team, determination in her eyes. "We've taken down 2. We need to keep pushing forward. The council's power is weakening, but we can't let our guard down." As night fell, the team prepared for their next move. The fight against the Council of Shadows was far from over, but they had gained a crucial advantage. The hunt was on, and they would stop at nothing to dismantle the Council's sinister network and uncover the truth behind their dark machinations. The night was unusually quiet as Emily and her team gathered in their temporary command center, a modest office space hidden away in an unassuming building. The quiet was deceptive. The tension in the air was palpable. They had made significant progress in dismantling the Council of Shadows, but the true danger lay ahead. Emily reviewed the notes they had compiled. The council members they had apprehended all shared a common thread. Each had been involved in powerful, secretive circles. Their connections were so deep that removing them had caused ripples throughout the city's power structures. Lisa sat across from Emily, her face pale and eyes troubled. "The spirits are becoming more aggressive," she said. "They're restless, almost desperate. They keep repeating the name Sable. I don't know what it means, but it's clearly important." "Sable?" Emily repeated, jotting down the name. "We'll look into it. For now, let's focus on our next target. We've got to disrupt the council's operations before they can regroup." Agent Harris, leaning against a desk littered with maps and documents, spoke up. "We've identified another council member, Eleanor Blackwood. She's a major player in the city's energy sector. Her influence reaches far, and she's got a private estate upstate. That's where we're heading." Jack, who had been monitoring surveillance feeds, looked up. "We've seen some strange activity around Blackwood's estate. Power surges, unexplained outages. It might be the perfect place for a showdown." Emily nodded. "All right, let's gear up. We don't know what we'll face, but we need to be prepared for anything." The team drove out of the city under the cover of darkness. The journey to Blackwood's estate was long, and the atmosphere inside the SUV was tense. As they approached the estate, a sprawling old mansion surrounded by dense woods, the feeling of unease grew. The estate's grandeur was marred by an oppressive aura. The mansion loomed ominously against the night sky, its windows like dark, empty eyes watching their every move. They parked a safe distance away and approached on foot, their equipment in tow. As they neared the mansion, Emily whispered, "Stay sharp. We don't know what kind of defenses Blackwood might have set up." Jack led the way, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. They reached the back entrance, a small wrought iron door partially concealed by overgrown ivy. It was surprisingly unlocked, and they slipped inside. The interior was a labyrinth of opulent rooms and shadowy corridors. Their footsteps echoed eerily as they moved through the mansion, the air thick with dust and a sense of foreboding. Emily and Jack took point, their eyes scanning for any sign of danger. Suddenly, they heard a guttural growl from a nearby room. Lisa's eyes widened as she sensed the presence of something dark and malevolent. "We're not alone," she whispered, her voice trembling. They entered the room cautiously. The sight before them was chilling. An altar covered in ancient symbols, candles flickering with an unnatural light. At the center of the room stood Eleanor Blackwood, her eyes glowing with a sinister energy. Shadows swirled around her, forming grotesque shapes that seemed to writhe and pulse with dark intent. Emily took a deep breath, her resolve steeling. "Blackwood, we know who you are and what you're part of. Surrender now, and we can end this peacefully." Blackwood laughed, a cold, mocking sound. "You're too late. The council's plans are already in motion. The shadows are awakening, and you're merely pawns in a much grander scheme." Before Emily could respond, the shadows coalesced into monstrous shapes, skinwalkers, crawlers, and shadowmen, emerging from the darkness. The fight was about to begin, and the stakes were higher than ever. As the entities charged, Emily's team readied their equipment, their faces set with determination. They were prepared to face whatever horrors lay ahead, knowing that the battle against the Council of Shadows was reaching its climax. The storm had gathered, and the final confrontation was imminent. The chaos erupted in the dimly lit room as the shadows took shape. Skinwalkers, their forms a grotesque blend of man and beast, lunged from the dark corners. Shadowmen, ephemeral and menacing, drifted silently yet with a palpable threat. The air crackled with malevolent energy as Eleanor Blackwood, standing amid the chaos, chanted an incantation in an ancient tongue. Emily and her team reacted swiftly. Jack unleashed a barrage of electromagnetic pulses, his device emitting a high-pitched whine as it discharged bursts of energy. The skinwalkers shrieked, their grotesque faces contorted in agony as the pulses disrupted their forms. Lisa, her eyes closed in concentration, projected a barrier of light around the team, repelling the shadowmen who tried to encroach upon them. "Keep them off balance," Emily shouted, her voice cutting through the tumult. She brandished a spectral blade, a device designed to sever the ties between the physical and supernatural realms. The blade's glow illuminated the room with an eerie light, slicing through the darkness with each swing. Blackwood's incantation grew louder, more frenzied. Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light, and the shadows around her thickened into a swirling vortex of darkness. "You can't stop what's coming," she screamed, her voice blending with the growls and hisses of the creatures she had summoned. Agent Harris, his face set with grim determination, activated a device that emitted a high-frequency signal intended to disrupt spectral energy. The signal pulsed through the room, causing the shadows to writhe and shudder. The skinwalkers faltered, their attacks growing less coordinated. Emily took a deep breath, her focus narrowing on Blackwood. The woman's power was formidable, but Emily could sense a weakness, a crack in the dark veil that shrouded her. With a determined stride, Emily closed the distance between herself and Blackwood, her spectral blade glowing brightly. Blackwood turned, her eyes widening in fury. "You think you can defeat me? I am a conduit for forces beyond your comprehension." Emily's response was steady. "It's not about defeating you. It's about stopping the chaos you've unleashed." She lunged forward, her blade slashing through the air. In a desperate move, Blackwood unleashed a wave of dark energy, sending a shockwave through the room. Emily was thrown back, crashing into a wall. The team struggled to regain their footing as the energy intensified. Lisa, sensing Emily's peril, channeled her own energy into a counterspell, creating a shield that absorbed the dark energy. "We need to finish this," she cried out, her voice strained but resolute. Jack and Harris moved in tandem, using their equipment to amplify the disruption of the spectral energy. The combined forces of their technology and Lisa's psychic power created a counterforce against Blackwood's dark ritual. With a final, determined effort, Emily rose to her feet, her blade glowing with intense light. She charged at Blackwood, who was now weakened by the combined assault of the team's efforts. Emily's blade cut through the dark vortex, severing the connection Blackwood had with the shadow realm. The shadows convulsed and screamed as the dark entities were forcibly expelled. Blackwood, her power dissipated, collapsed to the ground, her eyes dimming. The room fell into an uneasy silence, broken only by the distant hum of the city beyond. The team gathered, their faces etched with exhaustion but also relief. The battle had been fierce, and the cost had been high, but they had succeeded in stopping the immediate threat. Emily looked around at her team, their expressions a mix of relief and wariness. "We've done it. The Council of Shadows is no longer a threat, but we need to remain vigilant. There's always more to uncover, and other dark forces may still linger." As the first light of dawn began to break through the windows, Emily and her team prepared to leave the mansion. They had faced unimaginable horrors, but they had emerged victorious. The city of New York was safe once more, but the shadow of their experiences would linger long after the battle had ended.